where we left off yesterday, King David was told that his house would be destroyed, would be decimated. There would be all sorts of horrors that would happen based upon the sin of Bathsheba. And we saw the first piece of it with the death of the baby that Bathsheba carried from their incestual affair. And that's where we continue with more horrors to the house of David. And this is a particularly disturbing chapter, I will tell you in advance. And after that, which implies that we are continuing, this again, a result of what happened. Shalom ben David achot Jafa ushma Tamar. And David had a beautiful daughter who was the sister of his son Avshalom, and her name was Tamar. And we know Tamar here, we know there's a Tamar earlier. Yehuda, of course, sleeps with Tamar and has two children way back in the, I believe it's the 37th chapter of Bereshit. So that name here, what to think about. Vayehaveha Amnon ben David. But this young girl is loved by her half-brother, David's oldest son, his Bechor Amnon. Vayetzer Amnon letchalot bavur Tamar achotoki v'tulahi. And Amnon was distraught. He was in love. He was beside with Tamar. And she was a virgin. She was unmarried. And it seemed impossible for Amnon to do anything to her. How could he be with her when she's half-sister? That's, of course, something that's prohibited. Amnon Reha. And Amnon had a friend. So friends sometimes can be good, and sometimes Ushmo Yonadav ben Shema Achi David Yonadav ish chacham me'od. He had a friend named Yonadav who was a very clever man, and he was also his cousin. His friend, his cousin, asked him, "What's the matter with you? Every day I see you, and you look so upset, so sad, so depressed. So what's wrong?" I love the sister of my brother Amnon. I love her. So Yonadav has a suggestion for him. Go lie down on your bed and feign sickness. Uva vicha l'rotecha, and your father will come to see you. V'amarte love tavo na Tamar, and you'll tell your father. You'll tell your father, let Tamar come and take care of me. And let her prepare the food in front of me so I may look on and let her serve. I think of the scene in Ghost with what's her name, Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore making the whatever. He's watching her do something like that. Amnon pretends to be sick. He says, her, help me. David Tamar sent Tamar without any thought. Go and see her brother Amnon and make food for him. Remember here, earlier, away from their incestual relationship. But David says to Amnon, this is her, go to your brother Amnon. Vatelech Tamar beit Amnon, achiev v'hu shocheh v'tikach et habatzek v'talash v'telavev leinav v'tivashel et halevavot. So Tamar goes to the house and she takes the dough and she kneads cakes for him and he cooks the cake. V'tikach et hamesheret v'titzok lefanav v'yima'in le'achol. She takes the pan and puts the cakes, but he refuses to eat. Vayomer Amnon, hotziu kol ish me'alai v'yitzu kol ish me'elav. And Amnon says, everybody needs to leave. Everybody, I need my privacy. Vayomer Amnon el Tamar, havi habira hacheder ve'evra miyadech. And Amnon says, bring the food inside, come into the, feed me. Vatikach Tamar levot asher asta v'tavol. And Tamar, what does she think, that anything terrible is going to happen? So she goes into the inner chamber. Vatigash elav le'achol, and she served him. Vayechazak ba, and he grabs her. He's chazak, he's strong. Vayomer la boi shechvi mi achoti. And he says to her, come sleep with me, my sister. Vatomer lo el achi al ta'aneni ki lo yasechem b'Yisrael al ta'aset hanavela azot. She says, don't do this. Don't force me. Such things are not done. We cannot do this horrific, vile thing. We don't do that. A scoundrel. Remember this name, Naval? Back, there was a terrible character in Shmuel Aleph named Nabal who showed great disrespect to King David. And King David was ready to kill, and all the rest of his men, all those who, as David said, urinate onto the wall of the men, the Abigail coming and stopping, then that would have happened. And so Naval is a terrible character to be compared to, and we have to see that word. And so she says, what does she say? Please speak to the king. He will not refuse me to you. So what is she trying to do? Obviously, she doesn't want to sleep with her, but she says, go speak to the king. And if he gives permission, and she knows David will never give permission to such a thing. But she's trying to push him off from doing this. But he refuses to listen to her. He overpowers her and he rapes her. And then after sleeping with her, Amnon has a great loathing, a hatred for her. And his hatred for her goes beyond the love that he had for her in the past. And Amnon said, get up and get out of here. And for a moment, we think there are two stories of rape that we had one earlier in the Torah, which is the rape of Dinah. And when we think of this story versus that story, yes, in that story, Shechem, the son of Hamor, goes and he rapes Dinah. But in the aftermath of the rape, he loves her. He wants to be with her. He makes his father make a pact with Israel, with Yaakov and his son, so that he can marry her and they can be one community together. He wants to take care of her after what he does is wrong. And that's what's strange about that story there when we try to understand Shimon and Levi and their killing of all the people of Shechem. But here, Amnon rapes his sister and then says, get the heck out of here. He may have said it a lot more aggressively than that. Vatomer lo, she pleads with him. She begs him, don't send me out. Don't send me away. That's going to be even worse than what you've done. I'm going to have to go out and I'm going to be shamed in public. But he will not listen to her. And listen to those words in the Hebrew. He says, get this thing. Here in my English, it's translated as woman, but it doesn't say Isha, it doesn't say Achi, Achoti, it doesn't say my sister. He says, get this thing out of me. V'noel hadelet achareh, lock the door behind her. She is not allowed. She sickens me. V'aleha ktonet pasim. And upon her was a coat of many colors, an ornamental tunic. Of course, brings us back to the idea of Yosef, a favored child. And maybe here in many ways, Tamar was a favored daughter of David. She's wearing this beautiful cloak, which was worn by the unmarried daughters of the king, and now she's locked outside. And Tamar puts dust on her head, right? She has signs of mourning. She rips her cloak and she walks away and she's crying and she's screaming. We've said many times in the book, the idea of the cloak that, right, Shmuel was given by his mother every year, patched up and given anew, the cloak that was torn away from Shaul over and over, and the cloak representing royalty. And here, her cloak is torn, and it's torn by her because the assault was something that was done to her by her family. She starts to walk home. Vayomer la Avshalom achiha, haimnon achich haya imach v'ata achoti acharishi achichu, al tashit et libech l'davar hazeh v'tashiv Tamar v'shoma beit Avshalom achicha. When she gets home, her brother Avshalom sees her and says, what did your brother Amnon do to you? And he says, please keep quiet about it. Don't think about it. And Tamar remains in her brother Avshalom's house. And here we have, based upon, if we think about it in contemporary times, how do we look at what Avshalom does? On the one hand, Avshalom protects her. He keeps her in her house. He gives her whatever she needs. He gives her the sense of protection and the sense of not worrying after this rape. But he tells her, keep quiet, not to report this rape, which we know, of course, is so problematic. By Melech David, and I should say, obviously, a very different world back then than today. But Melech David, and David heard all that happen. He was really angry. But Avshalom did not say anything to Amnon, nothing good, nothing bad, because he hated Amnon because of his raping his sister. And here we have something very difficult. King David's very angry. But what does David do? Yeah, that's what he does. He does nothing. And it's extremely problematic to think about why David doesn't do nothing. And after he was told that to be punished, after he was told that there was going to be somebody who comes from his house and is going to cause disaster, he may have just accepted it. And he may, at this point in his life, he's struggling and he's not that same confident person that we saw earlier, the man who stands up to the Goliath, the man who's not worried about anything. David is in a different place in the world. Continuing now in verse 23, we sort of have the second part of this chapter where the story continues 2 years later. Yamim usually means days, but here it means years. Avshalom was having his sheep shorn, and he calls for all his sons. And Avshalom says, why don't you come? It's a big party. We're shearing the sheep, and we're going to have sacrifices, and we're going to eat well, etc., etc. And Avshalom says, please come. And David says, no, don't go. And he blesses him. And Avshalom says, can at least Amnon come? You can't come, king, but how about the crown prince? Can he come? And the king says, yes, he can go. King agrees to it. We're in verse 28. Hikaku et Amnon v'hamitem oto al tiro. Haloki anochi tziviti etchem chizku v'hayu livnei chayil. And Avshalom says to his associates, the people, his entourage, his na'arav, he says to them, when Amnon is getting drunk, when he's enjoying himself, and I tell you, it's time to kill Amnon, kill him. Don't worry, because I am commanding you to do this. And the word that's used here, chizku, be strong, be brave. Remember earlier, the word that Amnon used, he was chazak, he grabbed, he overpowered Tamar. Avshalom's attendants, so Amnon is getting drunk, they're eating together, and Avshalom's men, they come and they kill Amnon. All the other princes see it, and they get on their donkeys and they flee. Word gets to David that all of his sons have been killed by Avshalom. This David tears his garments, he lies down on the ground, and all of his servants, all of his courtiers stood by, and they also tear their clothing. We've seen this a lot with David. He's supposed to be king, but half the time he's tearing his clothing over the baby that died in the last chapter, over Shaul and Yehonatan, over Avner, over and over again. He's supposed to be king, and what is he doing? He's tearing his clothing. He's in mourning. Vayan Yonatan ben Shema achi David, and Yonatan, that smart guy who was the friend of Amnon earlier, he says to David, he said it wasn't all of them were killed. The only one who was killed was Amnon. Amnon was hated by Avshalom because he raped his sister. So don't worry, king. There's only one person who died, which is Amnon. Meanwhile, Avshalom had to run away. He killed the crown prince. He killed his brother. And so the watchmen are on duty, and they're looking, and they saw a large crowd coming up the road. And as Yonadav spoke, all the princes were coming on their way. And everybody crying.
And how did you become the host all of a sudden?
Yeah, I was about to message everybody. Obviously, it was a shame because it's obviously it's a striking chapter, but
Yeah.
please come back. Okay.
Okay.
I may be back.
But we can't really hear you.
Yeah, Rabbi Gitler, we've had a lot of difficulty because of the garage, I think.
I wonder if he can hear you.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to wish everyone Shabbat Shalom. I have to sign off, but we'll hope to see you soon. And
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Ben.
Shabbat Shalom, Ben.
We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Bye.
Oh,
Maybe we should.
I see his name, but
Right.
now
Okay.
there's a small
Better.
image.
Oh,
I'll just get out and I'll call you back in 2 minutes. Let me get out and see if I can find a better spot. Thank you. Okay. You guys hear me?
yeah, now we can
We
hear you.
can now.
Now you can. Okay. Sorry about that.
Almost at the end.
Okay. You
Yeah.
tell me if we were basically done with the chapter. So this recording will be totally messed up. Okay. I think we were up. Avshalom has run. We were in verse 37. He ran to Talmai. He's of Geshur, which is part of basically the Golan Heights, and that's where his mother was from. His mother was from there. And the end of verse 37, it refers back to David, that David was mourning over his son for a long time. And there's a question here in verse 37: which son is he mourning over? Is he mourning over Amnon? Is he mourning over Avshalom? Is he mourning over both of them? Avshalom barach, and Avshalom, as we said earlier, he runs away. Vayelech Geshur vayisham shlosh shanim. And Avshalom runs to Geshur, and he's there for 3 years. Vatechal David Amelech latzeit el Avshalom ki nacham al Amnon ki met. And David was pining for Avshalom because David had gotten over Amnon's death. David realized that this was just part of the horrors that were supposed to come to him as a result of the death of his.
Right.
It's as a result of the killing of Uriah and the sleeping with his wife Bathsheba. And so David here is resigned that these things are going to happen, but he wants to see his son Avshalom again, even though Avshalom has done a terrible thing. And one last comment with this chapter, and then I'm sorry about what happened in the middle there, and I don't know, I'm doing my recording. I am here in Nashville somewhere, but the one thing really to think about in this chapter, and we didn't say it, I could have said it earlier. Part of the reason David can't say anything is because David is not quite the best model of how to treat a woman. How is it that Amnon felt that he could do such a thing? Well, I'm sure he knew about his father and what happened with with Bathsheba. It might not have been known by everybody, but some of the sons of the king must have known what had happened. And so when your father goes and takes a woman off the street, a married woman, even if he's king, if he's allowed to do that, if he's allowed to break the rules of Israel, why can't I break the rules of Israel and sleep with my half-sister? And so David there, I think he's broken a little bit, but I think what moral authority does he have to say anything to Amnon after the rape? How can he confront him when he's done almost the similar thing? So we'll stop there. And any questions or thoughts? And I'm sorry about the middle, but I don't know. Hopefully you heard most of it. At some point I said, "Oh, looks like the recording stopped." So
Yeah, it was good. Very good.
okay. After, and like you said, these are terrible, terrible times in the life of David. Yeah, more.
Yeah. Do we ever hear about Tamar again?
I believe Tamar is not heard from again.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, and I'm slightly surprised nobody has yet written a book about her.
Yeah.
Not the secret book of Kings.
I don't think it's the book of Kings. Okay. So
Thank you. Have a great Shabbat in Nashville.
guys, I'm going to go. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
I'll have to catch up Ben for the last seconds that he missed, and I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys on Monday. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Thank you.
Shalom.
Bye.
Shabbat Shalom.